Hey everybody, welcome to the Southern Borders Football Conversation. I am your host, Jared O11 Green, and this is the coach, our LDBC brother, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. How's everything going tonight?
Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored, bro. What's good with you, bro?
Same here, I can't complain. Definitely can't complain. So we're just gonna take some of you guys' time. Whoever tuned in, appreciate you. Please click the like button, share, share the video. Also, go over to my partner's Coach 67 Sports TV channel. He covers HBCU, basketball, boxing. He covers all of it. He has good content. Please go over there and give the brother some love. So, just want to go over. Of course, we're going to go over the Grambling versus Southern game that happened this past weekend. But I just want to go over the standings of what happened this past week. So if you guys don't know, like I've stated in the last show, basically Jackson State and North Carolina Central are slated for the Celebration Bowl. I believe they play.
Hold up, bro. Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking ahead. I'm sorry. I'm disrespecting Coach. They still got to beat Southern, so that's how. I'm sorry. I'm already telling you guys who I think gonna win this coming up Saturday. But of course, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But Coach, you was at the. I saw your video on YouTube. You was at the game.
Yes, sir.
Let people know, since you was there, live, how you thought Southern did versus Grambling.
Well, first of all, I went to all the Southern home games, including the Bayou Classic, and first of all, it did a lot of raining in New Orleans this weekend. Well, in particular, I don't say this weekend, but it did a lot of raining Saturday, and Senior, man, he rest in peace. He was big about, back then, the last few years, the Bayou Classic kickoff has been 4:00, but they moved it back up to the normal 1:00 kickoff. So, of course, my family, we operate on color people time, and as a result, I was a little late for the game, so I was highly heated. I was extremely upset. I got to the game around the latter part of the first quarter, so I was extremely upset because I got the exit for the Superdome. I got down off the exit around 12:00, but the traffic was so backed up and it did a lot of rain. And, it was well after 1 before we even got into the Superdome parking lot and into the Caesar Superdome, But in terms of the atmosphere itself, when Southern was at their peak, in the mid to late 90s, when Pete Richardson had the program really going, used to have a certain buzz, a certain energy, kind of like the meet and greet, how epic it was. That's how the Bayou Classic used to be every single year. It was an epic event. When we talked about early this season, when Southern played LSU at Tiger Stadium and Tiger Line, it was the stadium was just buzzing. The Bayou Classic this year, I mean, it had a little bit of that feel, but it didn't have that same feel of years past. So just the atmosphere, it was a good atmosphere, but it wasn't great or excellent like it's been years past. So that's first of all. Second of all, the game itself, just to be truthful, bro, to say Hugh Jackson was a good offensive, not just an average, he was a good offensive coordinator in the NFL, and he was a head coach in the NFL. I know, it takes you a full cycle to get your players in a full recruiting class, 3 to 4 years, to see what you could really do as a head coach. strictly as a play call, whoever was calling those plays, bro, I'm gonna just keep it real. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. They did a terrible job. If
Oh
they
man.
if they were from an offensive coordinator standpoint, if they did a good job, I'm gonna just be truthful. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna just be honest. Grambling wins that game and Southern loses because, like I've been telling you for weeks, whether it's Virginia Lynchburg, whether it's Mississippi Valley, Southern constantly and perpetually plays on to the level of the competition. Southern really didn't go out and really play their best football Saturday against Grambling. I mean, Grambling got the lead. They jumped out on them 7-0, and Southern went 3-and-out. Grambling got the ball back, and they was driving the ball on the field. They were on the plus side of the field, and Cal Vaz fumbled the ball. Southern got the ball. Southern went down the field and scored. They tied the game up. Uh, and then uh, Southern got the ball. Grambling got the ball, went down the field. They kicked the field goal, and Southern scored a touchdown. It was back and forth. Grambling to go up, Southern to go up. The thing that really got me, the MVP for, every year the Bayou Classic, there's two MVPs. There's one MVP for Grambling, there's one MVP for Southern. Frank Chalk the Ford, running back for Grambling. Bro, he had 8 carries for 120 yards.
Wow.
Can you think about the rushing average? And I'm thinking to myself, from a coaching standpoint, when Grambling would line up in I double tight, strong I double tight, ace double tight in the shotgun, pistol wing T, any like run heavy formation they would line up in. It didn't matter which running back they really had. The running game was just working, and Southern had no answer. Southern would get a stop here and there, but on a consistent basis, Southern really couldn't stop the run. And the Chalk kid, I mean, he had eight carries for 120 yards. Like, bro, why would you just keep feeding him the rock? And why would you just stick with the running game? So when it really got to the point where Southern was up they were up 4 points in the fourth quarter, and Southern had the ball. Let me not let Coach Dooley off the hook either, because from a play calling standpoint, we all know Southern is a run-heavy team. My friend, Mr. Bashawn McCray, who I like to call it Darius Skelton 2.0, because for those people that don't know, last year, Glendon Bubba McDaniel was the starting quarterback for most of the year, but the incumbent starter last year was Ladarius Skelton. And essentially, Bashawn McCray is like a mirror image of Ladarius Skelton. He's a glorified running back playing quarterback. Ladarius Skelton, from a passing standpoint, he had 7 completions. He had 7 pass attempts with 7 completions, so he was 7-17. But from a rushing standpoint, he ran the ball 17 times for I think 93 yards, 94 yards, whatever the case may be. So, bro, he had the same amount of rush attempts as he had pass attempts as a quarterback. So there was a point where Southern was up 1 score, and the score was, Southern was up 1 score. Southern was up by 4 points, and it was 3rd and 1. So I'm thinking to myself, well, they're just gonna run the ball because at that point Southern had the running game going, and as usual, he, just like Hugh Jackson on the opposite side, Coach Dooley, he decided to try to outthink himself, and he tried to run a sprint pass. But first they faked the zone read, the read option, and they ran a sprint pass off of it. And I'm thinking to myself, bro, it's 3rd and 1. The whole season, when Southern was getting that down the distance, they were running the ball probably about 75% of the time. And it's 3rd and 1, and they're going to try to run a sprint pass. Not just run it, but they ran it to the short side of the field. And they ended up punting the ball. So I'm thinking to myself, well, hey, Grambling has the momentum in their favor. Of course, Grambling, from a play calling standpoint, you've been running the ball pretty much the entire game. Southern can't stop the run. They come out just passing the ball. I'm thinking to myself, man, hey, from a play calling standpoint, both coaches just, I'm sorry, they just didn't cut it. So when Southern got the ball back, Southern moved the ball some, but the thing that really got Southern over the hump was the fact that even though Southern couldn't stop the running game, Hugh Jackson, he decided he wanted to be smart. They kept throwing the ball. Then Calvez fumbled the ball. Southern got a scoop and score, and then Calvez threw a pick six, and that pretty much ended the game. So for the most part, Grambling had the momentum. Southern couldn't stop the running game. Like any run heavy formation, like I see, any double tight, whether it's because they lined up in the I, they went I double tight, strong I double tight. They went pistol wing T. They went ace double tight from under center and out the shotgun. Anytime they really ran the ball, and they ran the ball with the chalk kid, Southern couldn't stop. But at the end, Coach Jackson, he got cute. He kept throwing the ball. And Calvez, he played, I really can't be too hard on him. He's a freshman. He played good up until the fourth quarter. He turned the ball over once in the second quarter. But those two late turnovers he had, and I'm not going to lie, to be truthful, just looking at the season from, all the Southern home games in the vacuum, really and truly, there's not a huge gap between Southern and like maybe a Grambling or Mississippi Valley because even though Southern,
Well, dang, coach.
huh?
Well, you said you being honest.
Yeah, I'm being honest. The reason I say that is because it's not the fact that, well, I'm not gonna say Valley, but I'm gonna say Grambling for certain. It's not a huge gap. The reason I say that is because the simple fact of the matter is there's a huge gap between Jackson State and everybody else, but in terms of Southern, they have a lot of penalties, and to me, they really lack discipline. And you could see it with Mississippi Valley and Grambling. But the thing about it is, with Grambling and Valley, they have like penalties at inopportune times, and then they turn the ball over in key and critical moments. That was the point where Southern was up 7-0 against Valley, and Valley was in the red zone. In fact, Valley threw an interception. Eventually, it led to a Glendon Bubba McDaniel touchdown. And Southern went up 14-0, and Southern went up 20-0, and Southern ended up winning 27-7. Same thing Saturday. Grambling was in position to take the lead and take a stranglehold in the game. And first in the first half, that in the second half, they were in position to take the lead again in the fourth quarter. Calvez turns the ball over. They have penalties at the worst time. Calvez eventually turns the ball over again, and that pretty much was the difference in the game because when he threw the pick six, for Grambling fans, it was like a mass exodus to the exit signs in the Caesar Superdome. So really and truly, I think from an X's and O's standpoint, had Grambling stuck with the run, I'm gonna just be truthful. I think they win the game because on a consistent basis, Southern wasn't stopping to run it all. Jordan Lewis was no factor. I mean, even really at a point from a passing standpoint, there were times he was trying to rush the passer in that offensive tackle that was blocking him. He just was manhandling him. But when it got to a point where Grambling kept passing the ball, Southern loaded up the box and they just blitzing and they were turning up. Once they really got the blitz going, like in the fourth quarter, that's when the mistakes just begin to happen. And Calvez really couldn't handle the pressure in the fourth quarter, and that would lead to turnovers, and that would lead to the momentum swinging in Southern favor. And once Southern was up by 2 scores, and I was confident that when he threw the pick six at the end, that pretty much was the end, and that really was the difference in the game. Southern won 34 to 17. That really was the difference, because Southern was only up by 1 score, and then they added the 14 points on that, gave them a 17-point win. So those 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter were critical,
Yeah, it was a pretty good game for the first and second quarter, and then I had to run out and do something. I come back, and Southern's up 34-17.
Yeah.
So looking at the stats, and to be honest with you, how they dominated the run game, Grambling State. Now, don't get me wrong, Southern didn't do anything in the passing game, but
At
Bishan
all.
McCray was for 7 completions, 17 attempts, only 75 yards in the air, no TDs. Bishan McCray though had 17 carries, 93 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 5 yards a carry. Carl Ligon 13 or Lejon, oh if I mispronounce his name, forgive me. 13 carries, 57 yards, a touchdown, and Kendrick Grimes 6 carries, 20 yards, and a touchdown. So it looks like they eventually was able to move. You guys was able to move the ball on the ground, but through the air, y'all definitely didn't um pose a threat to Grambling at all. Grambling, on the other hand, it looks like in watching the game, basically Julian Calvez should have just been a game manager at that point. Because he wasn't doing horrible through the air, but like you said, that pick six killed them and made it the game out of reach. Out of reach. Go ahead.
Well, at the point, well, first of all, in terms of, I don't know if Gerard Sims was hurt. If he, from what I understand, he's in the doghouse. I don't know how accurate that is, but he didn't play at all in the game. I'm thinking he
No.
could be because he a senior. So they pretty much rolled Kendrick Grimes and Carl Logan in terms of the pass. I mean the run game. And but to think about it, when you think about Bashawn McCray, he had the same amount of pass attempts and same amount of run attempts. He's a quarterback. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been saying the whole year, like, he was a Darius Skelton 2.0. Like, essentially, he's a glorified running back playing quarterback. And don't get me wrong. I mean, he had a big pass to Cassius Allen, and a couple other receivers. He made timely passes, but in terms of just beating you consistently with the passing game, there's no way. I mean, he only completed 7 passes, and to be truthful, in terms of from a passing standpoint, Calvez and McCray, they were pretty much the same almost. And the same thing with Calvez. He had some timely completions, but for the most part, Grammy did all their damage through the run game. I mean, they had 201 yards rushing. And the crazy thing about it is, is what Chalk averaged with like 15 yards a carry, and he only got 8 touches. It's like, bro, even though he might be a speed back, because the thing about it, Carl Log and Kendrick Grimes, they speed backs also. So pretty much, even the kid Chase Williams, he played at Scotlandville High, and
Right.
so he's a local kid. So if you look at all these backs for both Southern and Grambling, they're all kind of like similar, like third down type backs, like like a Thurman Towns type back, those type of backs, like the Melvin Williams, the those type of backs, like the Steve
Mm-hmm.
Wolf, the smallish Ryan Lewis, all of those type backs that Southern had over the years. They those type of backs, all of those backs for the most part. And Grambling, really, like I said, just to be truthful and honest, I think if Hugh Jackson and Grambling were stuck with the run game, I think they win that game. Just
Because
to
I'm
be
I'm
truthful.
looking at the stats over here. Coach Floyd Chalk, the fourth, had 8 carries,
For 120
120
yards.
yards, 15 yards average,
I said 15
and
yards a
then
carry, bro.
Maurice Washington behind him 6 yards, only 6 yards, 49 yards, 8.2 average yards to carry. Chance Williams right behind the third running back on the
With the
roster.
Scotlandville. With the
When
Scotlandville.
yeah, 6 yards, 41. 6 carries, 41 yards, 6.8 a carry, and then this this what shocks me. I don't know, and this plays into what you were saying about Hugh Jackson. And no disrespect to Coach Jackson, he's a hell of a coach. But Julian Calvez, 20 carries, -8 yards,
Well, they count those
and a
sacks.
touchdown.
They counted those sacks as rush yards. But the thing about it
They
was,
shouldn't do that, but yeah. But
But this was the crazy thing though, bro. Like it's like in the fourth quarter, once it got to a certain point of the game. Don't get me wrong. Once you get down two scores, I understand that.
hmm
But when they were down by one score, it's like they abandoned the running game. I'm like, what are you doing? Like Southern didn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a Southern fan, but from the coach in me was like, what are you doing? Like Southern can't. Southern. Don't get me wrong. Southern got stops here and there in the running game, but Southern didn't stop them from running the ball on a consistent basis. If
you
if I
got
if I got if I got the run game going in that week, I don't get me wrong. I know Hugh Jackson is an NFL coach, and I'm a middle school coach, but
right.
good play calling is good play calling. So even though you got an NFL mindset, and for me, for the most part, if you can't stop my running game as a middle school coach, I'm gonna just try to run it down your throat. But even with that being said, if you see you having this kind of success running the ball, like why overthink it? My coaching philosophy over the years has always been keep it simple, and he didn't do that. He just try to get cute, and they overthought the situation, and they try to be cute. At one point, I think they had like, if I'm not mistaken, like 5 or 6 passes in a row, and I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, it was so obvious that they threw the game in the fourth quarter. Now, some of the Grambling fans, because the section I sat in the season super, I said section 111, it was like the corner. It was like on the Grambling side, but it's like the corner kind of leading to the end zone, and Southern Band was like directly across from me.
hmm
So if for those people that saw, the clips I posted to my Instagram, like those were like Southern clips. Like Southern Band is right across from me, so that's why I got all those clips of Southern bands playing. But the thing about it is, even like some of the Grambling fans that were sitting where we were sitting, they basically were saying that Grambling has been known to like give away games in the fourth quarter, but I can't put this on Grambling. If I had to put the onus on anybody, I would give 80% of the blame to Hugh Jackson and maybe 20% of the blame to Callaway.
Absolutely, and I
But
bet you Hugh Jackson would agree with you.
yeah,
But
because from a coaching standpoint, I'm like, there's no way. I just would have ran double tight. I don't care if I'm lining up in the shotgun, if I'm lining up in the under center, whether it's ace or the I. Bro, I'm just trying to run the ball down Southern's throat. We only down one score. There's no need to panic. Just stick with the run game.
exactly,
Yeah,
because just looking at the stats, they couldn't stop the run game at all.
bro, I'm
At
telling you.
all. Matter of fact,
Southern got
um,
a here and there, but consistently stopping the running game, they didn't do it. I mean, because really, if that was the outlook, because at no point did Southern really load up the box until like the fourth quarter. Because
mhm.
even defensive standpoint, I'm like, bro, y'all struggling to stop the run this much. Man, I'd have been loaded up the box. Cowboys, because I'm not gonna lie, if I was the defense coordinator for either team, the quarterback would have had to beat me passing the ball. Period.
You know who's the best two running backs in the SWAC?
Who?
Javion Howard from Alcorn State, and then the second person is,
The
of
right
course,
back.
Floyd Chalk, the
Well, I
fourth.
chalk, chalk, chalk. He was like I said, he was Grammy's MVP. Of course, McCray was Southern's MVP by default because nobody else besides him, nobody else really touched the ball for Southern. Cassius Allen only had like one reception. Rhymes and Ligon, they had a couple runs, but for the most part, it was by default when it came to Southern, and that's the thing. I don't want to kind of jump ahead of your question, but the big issue for Southern moving forward is can Southern generate enough offense to win the SWAC championship game? Because they, I've been watching them the whole season outside of against Florida Memorial
hmm
and Virginia Lynchburg. There were even times against Valley that Southern really struggled on the offensive end of the ball. So that's why when there was a certain point where once the Southern got the ball back at the end, put McCray in the game, I'm like, bro, like I would have threw Glenn the Bubba McDaniel in there because the game is practically out of reach. What do you have to lose at this point? I mean, even if you
Listen,
didn't play, even if you didn't play him, you put Harold Blood in the game. Either one of those two, because those guys can make plays in the pocket, but Sean McCray can't. I'm sorry, I'm just being truthful.
wow. So coach is basically being Brutally honest. He loves his Southern Jaguars, but he's not pulling any punches, and he's being the realist at this point. Um, Southern has to really basically put on another mask once they play Jackson State, um, which is going to go into our next question of the show. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, duh, Jackson State. But again, the game that we play, that we all love, that we played and all love, a lot of times the team that you expect to win, not all the time wins. So that's the game of football. But we have to ask, who wins the SWAC championship? Jackson State or Southern University? So of course we all picking Jackson State, right? After you said the basically the offensive laps uh, in Southern and uh, the they can't stop the run. But let's say if you had to take the reins of Southern, just hypothetical, and with the talent that's on the roster on both sides of the ball, Coach, what would you do to try to at least compete or surprise with Jackson State? And
Well,
in a different world, let me finish because I know you gonna kill it. How is Southern gonna bring up the upset? How are they gonna do it in the hypothetical world?
well, this is my take on it because I was at A.W. Mumford Stadium when Southern pushed Jackson State to the limit. See, when they played them the first time in the Boombox Classic, Southern initially their defense played well enough, but once Jackson State really got it going on the offensive side, because that's one of Southern issues. They had it when they played at home against Alcorn. Southern defense, they play well, you know, especially when they motivated, they play well. But it's the fact that, in so many instances where the offense struggles, the defense can't stay off the field. So the offense get the ball, they go 3 and out. Now you're putting your defense back on the field. And I think that's what happened even the first time they played against Jackson State. So me, if I was Coach Eric Dooley for this SWAC championship game, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'm not pulling no punches. Glenda Bubba McDaniel is my starter. And I know people are going to be like, well, Coach, he struggled against Mississippi Valley. I don't care. I'm not saying I wouldn't play Bashawn McCray at all, but Glendon Bubba McDaniel is my starter. No questions asked. So the defense, I think offensively we get the ball first. I would make Glendon Bubba McDaniel my starter. I would make a conscious effort to get Cassius Allen and August Petrie the ball like right away from the outset, because I think your running game really isn't. I don't think it's going to suffer because you got to realize people don't realize it. But Sean McCray is Southern's leading rusher, and at this point, it's obvious that the offense is tailored to him, and most of the rushing yards he's going to get because he touches the ball the most. But even with that being said, I would try to, you know, get my passing game going, because the thing about it is, whether you have Gerard Sims or Carl Ligon, Kendrick Grimes, no matter who's the running back, you can always run the ball. But when McCray is in the game, he's no threat as a passer. So that's the biggest problem. And even if you look at the game last year, for somebody that was in attendance like myself, Gerard Sims, I tell you that, but he didn't play in that game. Uh, uh, what the kid name is, I can't remember. Well, he was a senior last year. Uh, he ran the ball well in that game, but more than anything, Glendon Bubba McDaniel, he did a good job managing the game. But more than anything, I know from an offensive standpoint, J State has few more weapons, and they definitely much better defensively. But Southern defense played well, and Shador Sanders, he struggled at A.W. Mumford Stadium last year. It really wasn't to that final drive that he brought Jackson State down the field and they went ahead. And then even with that being said, Glenn Bubba McDaniel, he got him back down to like the plus maybe 30, 35 side of the field. But after that point, the drive stalled out, and that was pretty much the end of the game. But even with that being said, you got to have a dual threat in terms of, you know, being able to both run the ball in the running game and pass the ball. Well, but Sean McCray, he's a run threat, but the thing about it, Jackson State has too many athletes for him to have a long run the way he had against Grambling, or a long run the way he had against FAMU. Some of these other SWAC teams they played against, they have too many athletes. And it's obvious what they're going to do. And like I said, if I was playing against Southern, I would just load up the box and say, you got to beat me in the passing game. So with that being said, I would pull no punches. I would have Gunnar McDaniel start the game as my starting quarterback. I would try to get August Petrie, the third, Cassius Allen, the game, whether it's some tunnel screens, bubble screens, give the ball to Ligon and Kendrick Grimes in the running game, and try to have a dual threat. And the thing about Glendon Bubba McDaniel, when he beat out Darius Skelton and John Lampley as the quarterback, uh, Skelton was the incumbent starter, but he was essentially what Bashawn McCray is now. Skelton was the same thing then. And Lampley was the passer. And the problem with Lampley was he was a pure pocket passer, but if you blitz him, he really couldn't get out the way. His footwork improved over his time at Southern, but he couldn't get out the way. Whereas McDaniel was kind of like the best of both worlds. He was a passer, but if he needed to take off and run, he could run. So I would let him start, and I would just let my defense do what it does, and I would just try to take away the run game first, and then just try to match up in the pass game, and then I would just play it by ear. Now, if McDaniel struggles, I would put McCray in the game, and if push come to shove, I don't know if he's ready because he's a transfer from Grambling. I would even see what Harold Blood has, because the thing about it was, for homecoming when they played against Virginia Lynchburg, McCray started the game, and once the game kind of got out of reach, they put McDaniel in the game. The thing about McDaniel is McDaniel likes to throw the ball, especially when he's playing. He's just getting the game. He did it against Florida Memorial, and he did it against Virginia Lynchburg. He just want to take a shot right down the field, like right away. And he threw an interception, and Coach Dooley pulled him right away. And then he put Harold Blood in the game, and Blood played better, in my opinion, than both of them. So if push comes to shove, you need to put Blood in there. I mean, I wouldn't be shy about playing all three quarterbacks if necessary. Whoever gives me the best shot to win, that's who I'm going with. But I think the problem is he's stuck with Bashawn McCray the entire season, despite how poorly he played. He played terribly against Texas Southern. He stuck with him. He didn't have a great game against FAMU. He stuck with him there. So I think we at the point of no return. He's just going to stick with McCray. But if it was me, Glendon Bubba McDaniel would be my starter, just to start out the game to see what he does. If he struggles,
Yeah.
you can always put McCray in the game. And if both of them struggling, go with whoever has the hotter hand. Push come to shove, I'll put Harold Blood in there just to see what he can do. But either way, I think you need to be able to beat Jackson State from a passing standpoint from the pocket. And you got to be able to get the running game going and pass the ball. And the thing about it is, another thing too, I would stay away from Travis Hunter. If he's on Cassius Allen, then I'm trying to get another receiver involved. If he's on August Petrie, I'm trying to get Cassius. Wherever he is, I'm trying to stay away from him.
I agree. And Jay Good is saying him personally, if the quarterback he want is Noah Barton, I would like to see myself him or Blood.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the reason why I would say Leonard Bowman McDaniel is because, one, he almost beat Jackson State last year, and in addition to that, uh, you know, I'll probably say out of the quarterbacks, him and McCray, they have since McCray pretty much started the whole season this year, and that was one of the issues why at the beginning of the season so happy that McCray became a starter, because there were times where Glendon McDaniel struggled too. He kind of was like feast of family. If I had to grade some of his games last year against uh against Alcorn, he was outstanding. I would give him an A in that game. I would give him probably like a C plus against Jackson State. But last year against Prairie, I would give him an F. So he's kind of like feast of famine. It can go in either direction, maybe right in the middle. But I mean, with his experience from last year, I would go with him. And that's the thing about it. In the game against Virginia Lynchburg, all four quarterbacks played. So you know,
Mm. Uh, I'm not gonna lie. I would love to see Bubba McDaniels. I just like his game better than Bishawn McCray. Bishawn McCray is talented, but I like you've been saying. I like Bubba. Um, Put it this way: if Bishawn McCray is not pushing the ball through the air, then like you and Jay Good was saying, I would take my chances on putting Noah Biden in or Bubba um, McDaniels. Or just try your option if the air attack is not working.
and like I said, bro, I mean, he the thing about the Darius Skelton, even though him and Bashawn McCray is essentially the same player, the one thing about it, you know, Southern have experienced linemen now, but at the time when they played against Alcorn State in the SWAC Championship game, it was extremely difficult to stop Southern's run attack. The seniors on the offensive line, especially when you put load up the box, they struggle, especially in terms of pass defense. So anytime McCray gets in third and long situations, it's an extreme struggle. For one, that's why they struggle so much against Jackson State. And then in addition to that, Southern defense, they kind of been like the last several weeks, like since they played against J State, they've been struggling. They struggled against FAMU, and it really even against Valley for homecoming. I mean, Valley was able to get the ball down into the red zone on a few occasions. The thing that helped Southern is Valley turned the ball over a couple of times, and they had some timely penalties, that really kind of helped, just like against Valley for the Classic. So you can't count on Jackson State making the same mistakes that Grambling and Valley made.
Yeah, is Jordan Lewis injured or something?
No, I mean he played in the Classic Saturday, and like I say, that left tackle. I mean, hey, he was manhandling Jordan Lewis. But once Southern walked the linebackers up and they really start blitzing, that's when Calvez really just kind of crumbled under the pressure. But I don't think they should have put him in that situation anyway. I think they should have just stuck with the running game, from a coaching
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah, yeah. Jordan, I'm not gonna lie. I think highly of Jordan Lewis, and I think he's just a game wrecker. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a scheme, um, or he's him being a lighter defensive lineman or linebacker. Uh, he's being stonewalled a lot going against these tackles. But yeah, he's not being the impactful player like he was last year. He's not
Well,
being the go ahead.
well, see the thing about it last year, the way they ran their scheme, it was kind of like a carryover of what Dawson Owens was doing with him when he was the head coach. Essentially, he was kind of like in a linebacker type position. In certain instances, they would drop him in the pass. In other instances, he would come like off an edge. Like in certain instances, now they put him in a wide nine. But when he would come off the edge last year, he was even wider than that. Like so, even in a wide nine, he was even wider than that. Many times he was coming off the edge. So it really kind of caught him off guard now. But at this point, he had the success he had. See, like I remember years ago, I don't know if Jay Good played with me, this defensive lineman named Joe Williams. And just like Jordan Lewis, he had a real good junior year. But what they did was when because Southern was the Celebration Bowl, now it was the Heritage Bowl at the time. What teams started doing, they started doubling Joe Williams at the time. And teams not even doubling Jordan Lewis, they're just kind of playing him, but they know he coming. So the tackle is ready for him at this point, you know what I'm saying? And even when Dumas had it going at certain points, it seemed like Dumas was getting more shine than Jordan Lewis at the time, So like kind of that's what it was. But we're at the point now, I think the linebackers really kind of feasting off of, you know, Jordan Lewis, even though he getting blocked, if they got somebody blitzing, whichever linebacker back is blitzing, for the most part, they getting home and they getting sacked. Because really, that's where when they really started to turn up the pressure on Calvez in the fourth quarter, it was those linebackers that were blitzing that really, you know, were the ones that really was getting the sacks.
Jay Good said Big Joe was there when he was
Oh yeah,
there.
yeah. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie. Joe Weeks was a dog when he was at Southern.
I bet he was. I bet he was, man. This is some because Jay Good a big dude. He's not trying to tell Jay Good business, but walk upon him if you want to.
Yeah, for real.
You don't gonna get your feelings hurt. Me being a former linebacker, I love to be behind
Yeah.
them big hogs, boy. Make it free access to the quarterback. But but just going off what you were saying about Southern not being consistent on offense or defense. Um, I mean, of course, I'm picking Jackson State, but of course, if I put my money on it, I'm picking Jackson State, 100%. But I mean, I just don't see it, Coach. I don't see an upset
No,
now.
Jackson State is a 17.5 point favorite. So yeah, I mean, upset is unlikely.
Yes, very unlikely. Now, if let's say, and again, I keep on using this word hypothetical, but I have to um, bring this up because strange things happens in football, right? So let's say hypothetically Southern upsets Jackson State. What would your thoughts be,
Uh, I think
and
in a
how
perfect
would they
world,
do it, in your
if
opinion?
if in a perfect world, if Southern would have upset Jackson State, I mean, I really think it would be, you know, it would be a shock, but they would have to play almost a perfect game. It would kind of have to be like a a, a Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson type upset. Uh, basically, Jack.
Right.
And I think the thing that if I was Southern, that I hate to say that you would have to count on, but the fact that Jackson State, they just whether they were playing against Alcorn, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, even Grambling, it's like they just kind of sleepwalk like through early portions of the game, and at some point they just flip the light switch and it just comes on, and they just kind of take over a game, and they just roll on a victory. In some instances, most instances, in a dominant fashion. But even if you look at the Alcorn game, like Alcorn was up 7-3, and they were just kind of sleepwalking, and then they made a great play call where you know they kind of like faked the draw, and they ran like a sprint pass behind it, and Shador had a big pass. It kind of got them their momentum going, and then they went down the field and they scored a touchdown. And then thereafter, for whatever reason, Alcorn threw at Travis Hunter. He got a pick six, and that pretty much was the difference in the game. But the point I'm trying to make is, if Jackson State don't bring the A game and Southern don't do nothing stupid to talk trash and send messages to Deion Sanders Jr. Prior to the game,
Oh, that
if
was stupid. Yeah, I remember that.
that type of thing doesn't play in, and Southern kind of lulls them to sleep, and they try to flip their switch. That's one thing. I played on some pretty good teams. And when teams are so good to the point where they could just flip the light switch on and off whenever they feel like it, at some point you're gonna flip it and it's not gonna come on because I always use the NBA analogy when the Lakers when they won back championships, when it was time for them to win their next championship, they played against the Detroit Pistons in the finals. When they went to turn that light switch on, it just didn't come on because they got in the habit of just, hey, whenever we ready to turn it on, we just gonna try to turn it on, and it doesn't always happen that way.
No.
So I think Southern will have to play a perfect game. I'm like I said, I'm gonna just be truthful. I don't think McCray can really get you that because
That's
if
my
he
other thing I was going to ask you, Coach. What quarterback does it? if they do pull off that upset? Is it Sean McCray?
It's not
Is
McCray.
it
I'm
is
sorry.
it is it Biden? Is it Bubba McDaniels?
I mean, I'm gonna be truthful. Like I say, I'm gonna just kind of stick with it. I say it's Glenn above McDaniels for me because the reason being is because he has experience. By right, he really should have beat J State last year. The
Right,
reason why Jackson State was so happy after that game and they planted the J State flag on the 50-yard line at E.W. Mumford Stadium, P. Richardson Field, because they knew in all actuality they really didn't deserve to win that game. Just like Grambling outplayed Southern uh, Saturday in the Classic, and Southern really didn't deserve to win, but they got the win. That night, Southern outplayed Jackson State, and Jackson State just escaped with a win. And in other games, even when Southern played against Alcorn this year, Southern escaped with a win. So, I mean, he almost got the job done last year. And I know Jackson State is much better now than it was like last year this time. But even with that being said, I think he would be the guy. But, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to play any quarterback. I'm not saying I wouldn't play McCray, but when he's in the game, the offense is so predictable. Teams know what you're gonna do. Uh, and like I said, I mean, I was shocked that when they played against Alcorn, that they just came out right away. They went deep down the field to August Petrie the third. So I mean, unless you could just come out right away and stretch the field, because once they did that against Alcorn, it just kind of set the table for the rest of the game in terms of their running game. Setting them up and running their read option off of that. But other than that, Southern is extremely predictable on offense, and they struggle in the passing game. So I think one of those passing quarterbacks, if it was me, whichever one Dooley prefers, I prefer McDaniel myself, but I would, let one of those passing quarterbacks start the game off and maybe bring McCray in the game at some point.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. I don't think this type of game against this type of team, uh, McCray is it. And no disrespect, he's an athlete. Young man can pass a little bit, but he's not it.
Well, I mean,
If,
I don't mean to
but
cut you off, but look at the games they're struggling in against Texas Southern and against J State. He couldn't get it done against those two teams. I mean, that's
at
everything you
all,
need to know.
yes, sir, yes, sir. And I definitely agree. The proof is in the pudding, right?
Yes,
Um,
sir.
but this game is so important. If those who don't know, whoever wins, and of course this is the SWAC Championship, goes to the Celebration Bowl. And who's waiting on this game is North Carolina Central. North Carolina Central split. Uh, they're sharing the championship with Howard, but Howard doesn't qualify to go to the Celebration Bowl. North Carolina Central does.
Wow.
So probably next show, or next show we're gonna discuss who we think is gonna win versus Jackson, or it could be Southern, could be Jackson State versus North Carolina Central. But we're going to see Saturday who wins. Of course, the
Oh,
writing on the wall. Jackson State might dog walk. It's going to dog walk Southern, but we'll see. The game got to be
now,
played. Go ahead, Coach.
one other thing we didn't bring up. I mean, I don't think it's really gonna play in. You know, from what I'm understanding, they say the Colorado University has made an offer to Coach Prime. We don't know if he's going to accept. I mean, I've seen instances in the past, whether it's with my friend who's the head coach of Louisiana State right now, Brian Kelly. I've seen it with other coaches where they accept the offer at another school and there's a offer looming and it kind of takes away the focus from the team that he's currently coaching. And, it can kind of go either way. So I'm not saying it's going to affect Jackson State, but there's one variable that we didn't address. I mean, with a potential offer looming, because I mean, we talked about this at the meet and greet. I mean, I think at
Yeah,
some point, Coach Prime is going to eventually get away from J State. He's going to go to a Power Five at some point.
yeah,
So, I think that was the reason why Southern really went with Coach Dooley, because he went to Grambling. He was an understudy of Coach Pete Richardson. The dean of the SWAC, and they knew, if you would have hired Kevin Sumlin instead, at some point he probably was just going to use the Southern job as a stepping stone to another Power Five job. So I think that is a factor that we really didn't, a variable that we really didn't factor into the equation.
yeah. And like Jay Good just said in the chat, it's a distraction. So
It is.
that could be uh some take Southern could take that to their advantage. And yes, Jay Good, North Carolina Central, Davius Richard is a dog, man. He's been lighting people up all year.
Yeah, I mean, against either team, whether he plays against Southern or Jackson State, I think, to be truthful, in terms of matchup, from a matchup standpoint, I think Jackson State will match up better, because Southern is struggled. When Southern is motivated defensively, Southern is a good team, but ever since they played against Jackson State, they kind of struggled defensively ever since.
I ain't
They
gonna lie,
struggled.
y'all made me proud. Southern made me proud when y'all that first quarter when y'all played LSU. That first
I'm a
quarter, that first few minutes, y'all were balling, but then of course that depth showed up. Go ahead.
Well, who it was, I don't know if it was Kendrick Grimes. I don't remember which back it was. I think it might have been the third back that played in the Classic. He fumbled the opening kickoff, and I'm gonna be truthful. My proudest moment of Southern is when they first played J State, and they was able to, even though Coach Prime, people can say what they want, the emotion of Southern sending him, the disrespectful messages prior to the game, it kind of played into it, because he got the ball first, and he went for it on fourth down on the minus side of the field. But J State defense is so good, Southern couldn't even move the ball. And then he turned around, he did it again. So from a coaching standpoint, when I make those type of decisions, I mean, don't get me wrong. From a coaching standpoint, I've kind of been accused of going for it too much on fourth down. But when I'm going for it, I'm not going for it on the minus side of the field unless the game is in danger of completely getting away from us. So for him to go for it on the minus side of the field, to me, I think, that was kind of emotional decisions. So, you know, but I was
Yeah,
proud
so
of Southern.
Rhymes he got what he deserving. Jay Good said, Coach Prime said there's like 4 or 5 other offers out there too, but he's not talking about it.
Well, I mean, the one that's public is the one from Colorado, but we know at some point. I mean, if we just gonna be honest about it, Power Five is gonna come, and eventually he's gonna get away from J State. And I'm gonna be truthful as a Southern fan, because I think in a short term, it'll be in Southern's best interest if he eventually went on, because Southern, and maybe, I don't know if it's Alcorn, FAMU, or whatever, some of those other teams in the SWAC maybe eventually ascend. But me personally, I just hope he stays, at least, and stays for at least 4 years, and just kind of see where it goes, and then eventually move on. But at some point, he's gonna move on. That's just the honest to God's truth about it.
He will, and I mean you can't blame him. Um, as far as money wise, HBCUs is baloney, but messing with the Power Five schools, that's stake right there. So I mean, that man got mortgages and stuff to pay. So don't get me wrong. Oh no, I hear some static. Give me 1 second. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that man got a mortgage to pay. He got bills, other obligations, responsibilities. So eventually, he's gonna move on. So that's imminent. But I think what everybody's watching is how he does it.
Yeah, and I mean, the way they was talking like on a 60-minute interview, he didn't say it in particular. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's business. You getting paid, so you have a job to do. So you're gonna go to a job that's gonna compensate you the most. But the way he was talking, like that was one of the reasons why they felt like he wasn't gonna leave Jackson State right away, is because he played in the NFL. He has millions. I'm not trying to count his pockets, but at the end of the day, they felt like he wouldn't be like another coach that was in financial need, that would just need to get just coach strictly for the money. So they felt like that would be the reason why he would stick around just maybe for a couple more seasons at least.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Jay Good said, talking to about that Southern offensive line, he said, "I need to see more dog out of that O line. They're not
No, yeah,
nasty enough."
I mean, I think the J, I think the first J State boombox classic, it kind of exposed Southern in certain ways that really they hadn't been exposed prior to that. I mean, even with the Texas Southern laws, you just kind of chalk it up to where it's a road game, this, that, and the third. Because to be truthful, after that Texas Southern game, Bashawn McCray. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's the level of competition also, because it wasn't like he was playing against world beater SWAC teams at the time. But with that being said, Southern defense they played better. The offensive line played better, and from a passing standpoint, it kind of seemed like Bashawn McCray made a quantum leap, because what they were doing. I mean, it was obvious that he can't go through his entire progression and read the entire field. So what they did was either they put Cassius Allen or August Petrie the third to one side of the field, and he would just make that read, and he would go to that one receiver. And in certain instances, he would get in trouble. Well, we know what his specialty is, running the ball, so he would just take
Right,
off and run. And then in other instances, there was this other Scotlandville kid that played with Chance Williams at Scotlandville. His name is Reginald King. He would be like a shallow cross receiver, and he would just throw him the ball. And since Gerard Sims, he was hurt a lot last year, so I don't know if he's hurt again this year. But with Ron, it's the he's been throwing the ball to back, a good little bit lately too. So that's kind of helped them in terms of the passing game. So you got Petrie, you got Allen, you got Rhymes, you got Wyden. So it's like, those few guys, really kind of served his in terms of the passing game. But once they played against Jackson State, and Jackson State would send an extra blitzer, Southern wasn't picking them up. And the thing I was proud of, but even though they did not as nasty and aggressive as, especially when they had Austin Howard and they had Leonard Tillery in that group, that's the reason why they were able to bow up against Georgia, because LSU really handed it to them. But against that team, when they had Willie Quinn and they had Mike Jones and they had Leonard Tillery and Austin Howard, that team really stood up against Georgia, because they was able to just pound the ball. Even against Georgia, as good as Georgia was at the time, they was able to pound the ball, because there are a lot of seniors on the offensive line. Southern had seniors on the offensive line now, but not as many as they had then. But more than anything, that Southern offensive line was nasty at that point, like Jay Good said. So they were able to run the ball, and of course you had a dog like Tillery running the ball. You know, so it's like they don't have those same ingredients. To really just be able to just pound the ball down the team's throat, even when they load up the box. And then if you did load up the box, you had, the little giant Willie Quinn on the outside, you get him the ball, and you have Mike Jones as a vertical threat. So, I mean, they had a lot of, just good moving pieces at that time. But now it's like in that Jackson State game when they was send that extra defender, that extra blitzer, it was like they were exposed and just hadn't really been the same since. And then of course, the DBs, the next week against FAMU, they struggled against the Smith kid. He a good wide receiver, but of course, Travis Hunter locked him up when they played against J State early in the year. But he got off against Southern, and then in addition to that, FAMU big backs, the DBs struggled to tackle those guys. So it's like that just kind of the first J State game. It kind of ever since then it snowballed downhill, in terms of both on the offensive and defensive side. They just struggled in both areas since then.
And Jay Good said I was at the TSU game. They had zero energy from the time they came out. It was like they was expecting TSU to lay down.
And that was the thing about it because people don't realize when Coach Rollins was the interim coach last year, that was one of the things that really kind of led to him, you know, getting fired. Well, I mean, he wasn't really not gonna say fired because he was an interim coach, but the fact that they were up big against McNeese State and they blew that game, now SWAC game against another team, FCS team that's on your level, predominantly white school, and then the Texas Southern loss. I mean, that's one thing about Coach Oldham we can say about him. You know, he might not have been able to get over that Alcorn State hump in the SWAC championship game, but he beat all the teams he was supposed to beat. And them losing to Texas Southern last year, it was a shocker. And then of course them dropping the classic. That was kind of pretty much the icing on the cake. So they got rid of him and they got Dooley in. And they thought Texas Southern was, well I hate because that was the big theme going into the game. The running narrative was the fact that Southern is looking for revenge for the upset loss last year. And guess what? They beat y'all for the second year in a row, so
Yeah, they definitely can't do that against Jackson State, or it's gonna be a long night.
yeah, it
Long
will
night, but
be.
we will see.
They have to come from
Yes,
open
sir.
kickoff ready to play.
That's it. That's what they have to do. And I mean,
Yes, sir.
uh, I mean the thought of an upset is not impossible, but it's almost, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's almost up there
It's
against
highly
Jackson State.
unlikely.
It's
No,
highly
it's
unlikely.
highly
There you go.
unlikely. Yeah, yeah.
But guys, we just wanted to get come on here and talk about the events that happen, especially in HBCU football, just mainly Jackson State and Southern going into this SWAC championship. I'm sorry, I hit a little static on your end, Coach. All right. So yeah, we just wanted to touch up
Oh yeah,
on
you
that
breaking up.
before. Yeah, I hear it. Give me 1 second.
All right. Oh no, you good now,
All
bro?
right. All right, bet. So yeah, so I appreciate everybody that came in tonight, especially on the during a weekday. I appreciate you guys. Jay Good, love you, bro. Main event, Mark. Love you, brothers. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. Coach, anything you want to say before you leave?
All right. Hopefully the Jags will go get a dub in the SWAC championship game. You know, shout out to the chat and shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC. Follow my brother, Jared 011 Green, here on YouTube. Follow me on YouTube at Coach 67 Sports TV. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal week. Peace and blessings. We'll catch y'all on the rebound. We're gonna be back again Sunday.
Yes, sir. God bless y'all. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay in the blood of Yahweh, aka Jesus. People crazy out here, but y'all be blessed. Have a blessed night.
Catch y'all on the rebound. Peace and blessings.